There's one thing about American homes that I find really surprising.
Why does every single American in existence have a fan on their ceiling? This is just the archetype of an American room, and I don't understand it because they always claim to have air conditioning. Most people in America have air conditioning. So why do you have a fan on your ceiling if you're already cooling down the room?
Having a big fridge with the ice dispenser. How common are these in American homes? We didn't have one back in the UK. This was our fridge.
Funny thing about home, you never really see it until someone else falls in love with it first. We grew up here. We complain about it daily. But right now, somewhere, a woman is landing on our soil for the first time, and she's about to fall harder for this country than most of us ever have. Today we're watching America hit different, through eyes from Ireland, Japan, Finland, France, England. And by the end, one of them says 4 words that might just change how we see our own country. Stick around for that one. Let's start with somebody who already knows the ending. She's not selling you a dream. She's 2 years deep into actually living it, and she still can't stop smiling about it every time she gets in the sea.
There's one thing about American homes that I find really surprising. I am in this beautiful place called Los Altos where, a lot of wealthy people live. But what I noticed is that all of their houses are made of wood. And a house can cost $15 million, but it's still gonna be made of wood. In a country where I come from, people prefer houses made of stone, concrete, because they're supposed to be more stable, more long-lasting. And I started digging, why do people use wood for houses in the US? First of all, it's a historical thing. When people came to the US, they were amazed by the amount of wood here. Second thing, it's faster and cheaper to build with wood. And third, if you're in California, we just had a 5 magnitude earthquake, so wooden houses are more flexible, and this is why it makes so much sense to build out of wood. But again, I have hard time explaining my parents and my grandparents why a house that is made of wood costs millions of dollars here.
$15 million. Still wood. You know what they say, all that glitters ain't gold, and apparently, all that's expensive ain't brick either. Comment below, would that surprise you too, or not? Here's someone who splits her life between 2 countries, and every summer, coming back to an American house feels like coming up for air.
Things in my Portuguese-American house that just make sense. American outlets for when we come over the summer, we don't have to use the extensions. A regular coffee pot for regular cups of coffee, not espressos. A properly sized fridge with an ice maker. A washer and dryer from the United States, because now we can do a properly sized load of laundry. AC and heating in every bedroom. And in the living room, obviously.
No extension cords. No tiny fridge. No fighting for hot water. Home is where the heart is, but apparently, it's also where the ice maker is. There's an old saying, a bird doesn't sing because it has an answer, it sings because it has a song. And that's kind of what we do here, every single day, digging past the headlines to see how the rest of the world really feels about this country. If you've made it this far without hitting subscribe, I respect the dedication it takes to make this difficult for yourself. But like they say, better late than never. Go ahead and make it official. She moved here from the UK, and there's a whole list of things she now can't imagine living without.
Things in my American house that as a Brit, I now have no idea how I would live without. These amazing taps that just do it all. Of course, this bad boy. The sheer size of my fridge freezer. Walk-in closets in every house. She's a mess, but genius. Air conditioning. The size of loo roll. It's just huge. Keeping washer dryers in the garage and the size of them. I mean, I could live in these washer dryers. The size of detergent. Huge! And how long clothes take to dry. Literally, I can dry all my towels and sheets perfectly. Nothing shrinks in like 45 minutes. They're amazing here.
Towels dry in 45 minutes. A closet you can actually walk into. Old proverb, you don't know what you've got till it's gone. She had to leave home to figure that one out. Here's one that genuinely confuses people the first time they see it. A power outlet, sitting right next to water. Looks like a disaster waiting to happen.
house. What's this? There's one in the bathroom. You are asking to be electrocuted.
So see, I was confused why you guys don't have plugs in your bathroom. I'm like, how do you dry your hair or whatever? So we have this. So you can't actually get electrocuted. If you put a plug in here that's wet or, poke something in there that you shouldn't, this detects it and it pops out like that and it stops the electricity. Every house has this, like, in the bathrooms. So in my house, I don't have it in one bathroom. Like, every bathroom doesn't have it. Sometimes you have a couple of bathrooms that are controlled by one of them. So, like, my bathroom is upstairs, but if I get it wet, I have to come down, sit down here to reset it. That they all have it. So it's not that dangerous.
Turns out it's not careless, it's calculated. Like the saying goes, don't judge a book by its cover. This one's smarter than it looks. Coming from a bog-standard UK semi, she says these features felt less like convenience, more like magic.
Things in my American home that just make sense to me. Having a big fridge with the ice dispenser. How common are these in American homes? We didn't have one back in the UK. This was our fridge. We also needed to keep our fridge freezer in our dining room as our kitchen was so small. Having a garage big enough to fit in 2 cars, minus that obviously. For when my daughter passes her driving licence, she can not only drive me up the wall, but she can drive me around the shops too. Obviously the aircon when you live somewhere that's as hot as the devil's armpit. These ceiling fans in every single room when it's not hot enough for the aircon but you just want a little breeze. This little button that controls your garbage disposal. Very fancy to us. We didn't have this in our bog standard home back in the UK. Food waste goes in here, down it goes. Got a button theme going on. I love this one. Turn it on. Press that and it switches to more powerful head, and the best bit, it's extendable, so you can extend it out, rinse all your stuff and put it back. So those are some things that I could not live without now. We didn't have any of those things back in our box standard 3-bedroom semi-detached home back in the UK.
TA button that makes food waste disappear. A garage big enough for 2 cars and a driving lesson. Small things, sure, but as they say, little strokes fell great oaks. Now here's someone breaking down the exact opposite comparison. What looks completely normal to us, but genuinely strange to a Brit.
Things in American households that are weird to British people. My British friends, let me know if you agree with these. Let's get into it. Okay, first up, light switches and power outlets inside the bathroom. So in the UK, it's very common for the light switches for the bathroom to be on the wall outside the bathroom. And most bathrooms in the UK do not have a power outlet inside the bathroom at all, except for maybe just a small one for an electric razor. Having a power outlet inside the bathroom is extremely weird to British people because they worry about the close proximity of the power outlet to the water. Which makes sense because, as we all know, electricity and water do not mix. Now, speaking of the bathroom, having just one faucet for both hot water and cold water is also weird to British people because in the UK, it's typical to have 2 separate taps, one for hot water and one for cold water. And I don't just mean 2 separate handles, I mean 2 separate taps, one that only dispenses hot water and one that only dispenses cold water. It's not typical to have just one faucet that mixes both the hot and cold water like we have in American households. Also, having a completely separate room for laundry. So in the UK, most people have their washing machine in the kitchen. It's also not super common to have a tumble dryer in the UK because most people in the UK line dry their clothes. And it's not very common to have a top-loading washing machine in the UK, which makes sense because you can't have a washing machine that loads from the top if it's underneath your kitchen counter. So my British friends, what do you think? Do these seem weird to you? And what other things do you find weird about American homes? Let me know.
One faucet instead of 2 separate taps. A whole room just for laundry. Different strokes for different folks, right? Comment below, which one of these would actually confuse you? She moved from Germany, where apartments come with nothing, even a stove. What she found here changed her whole idea of what standard means.
I'm a European who moved to America around 1.5 years ago, and I want to tell you why I really love apartments in the US compared to Germany. So apartments in Germany, they don't have any appliances. When you move in, most of the time you have to bring your own kitchen, like your own fridge, your own stove, everything. And most people also get their own washing machine for the bathroom. And also we don't have built-in closets. That means we also have to buy a big ass closet that we have to, yeah, put up and build up. Versus in America, which is so, so cool that all of these things are already included into the apartment. Like I can just move so easily because all of the big things are already there. Also, my apartment complex is really cool here in the US because we also have like our own gym. We have like this room, for example, it's not even my apartment. This is like a community room that I just use for filming. And we have a pool and a jacuzzi. I know not all apartment complexes have that, but this is so crazy. You would not find that in Germany ever. Maybe super crazy luxury apartments, but this is a pretty standard apartment complex, so I really like that.
In Germany, you bring your own kitchen. Here, you just move in. There's a saying for it. The guest who is fed without asking never forgets the table. Okay, this next one had me laughing, not gonna lie. Somebody genuinely wants to know why we're out here running a fan and the AC at the same time.
Why does every single American in existence have a fan on their ceiling? This is just the archetype of an American room, and I don't understand it because they always claim to have air conditioning. Most people in America have air conditioning. So why do you have a fan on your ceiling if you're already cooling down the room? Why is this a thing, and why are Americans so passionate about a ceiling fan? Because I have never entered a room in England where they have a ceiling fan unless you have a lot of money. If you have a lot of money, you'll have a ceiling fan. But me, the commoner, we're not going around people's houses and seeing ceiling fans every day. So why do Americans have such a passion behind ceiling fans? And it doesn't make sense to me. If you've got air conditioning, why do you need a ceiling fan? I don't know. Let me know in the comments if you have a ceiling fan, because these are the questions that plague on my mind. Seriously, like, I need to know why a ceiling fan is so useful if you have air conditioning already. It doesn't make any sense to me whatsoever. So do you have a ceiling?
Honestly, fair question. But like Grandma always said, more is more, and less is a bore. Comment below right now if your ceiling fan is spinning while you're watching this. I bet it's more of you than you think. Now let's actually go inside one, floor to ceiling. Because it's not just the walls that throw people off, it's everything hiding behind them.
So, I'm a British person staying in an American house, and I want to show you all the differences that I've noticed so far.
Starting with the outside of the house, and first of all, there's this thing, which I can only assume is some sort of air conditioning device.
Now, of course, in the UK, if there's one thing we do not need, it's air conditioning. It's cold enough.
There is also this sort of dungeon trapdoor, which I am too scared to even touch.
Right, okay, let's go inside.
Now, for some reason, all American houses have like two doors. There's this see-through one, and then the actual door.
Another huge difference with American houses are these things. Plug sockets. Yes, we do have them, but you guys have about 4 million. I think you could power a small army with the amount of plug sockets you have in a house in America. And speaking of plug sockets, this is the most shocking thing in the house. What's this?
There's one in the bathroom.
You are asking to be electrocuted. Now, American houses have indoor access to the garage. You can just access it from inside. In the UK, we have to go outside to go into the garage, which actually seems a little bit crazy. I'm currently stood in the kitchen. Notice anything missing? They don't keep their tumble dryer and washing machine in the kitchen.
They keep them separate in a whole different room.
Now, when you think of air conditioning or heating, I always think it's in the walls or in the ceiling. Not in America.
They blow hot and cold air out of the floor.
Okay, 2 more things, and then I promise I'm done. Their plugs look like this. 2 thin ends and a chunky round one. In the UK, they look like this. So basically, if you're from the UK, bring an adapter. And last but not least, most American houses are made of wood. So one strong gust of wind or a tiny little fire, and it is quite literally game over.
And there it is. The same nagging doubt everyone circles back to. One gust of wind, and it's game over. But remember, what looks fragile from the outside isn't always weak underneath. We're about to prove it. They say every dog has its day. Well, Wood's day is right now. Because everything you just heard, every bit of doubt, is not that flimsy, is about to get answered in about 60 seconds.
Why do Americans build houses with wood? Here's 3 reasons. First, a wood-framed house is way stronger than you think. Houses in our area are engineered to withstand wind up to 115 miles per hour. We use heavy-duty hangers, straps, and hurricane clips for extra strength. And our modern houses don't just use nails, but have specialty bolts and engineered screws to tie the house together and lock it down to the foundation. And why not just use brick? Most people don't realize that brick houses still have wood walls behind them. The brick is just a decorative veneer. Second, wood is a renewable resource. We have lots of forests and tons of timber throughout the US and Canada, so framing a house with wood is more affordable than other materials. Because it's easy to work with, you can frame a house fast, which keeps labor costs down. Third, wood framing gives us room to hide wiring, plumbing, and HVAC lines inside the walls. These same stud bays get filled with insulation. And because wood is a much better insulator than steel or concrete, our houses stay warm in the winter and cool in the summer.
Winds over 100 miles an hour, and it holds. Even that brick house you thought was tougher, would frame hiding right behind it. Like the old proverb says, still waters run deep. This one's stronger than it ever looked. Funny how that works. The thing that looked the flimsiest on the outside was actually built to take a hit nobody else's house could survive. Like they say, appearances can be deceiving. So here's a real question. Did you know wood-framed homes could handle that much before this video? Tell me in the comments. And remember, a rolling stone gathers no moss, so don't just scroll past this one. Hit subscribe, because next time it might be your assumption we take apart.